Hello kids! Another day, another learning! Good day everyone! Can you still remember the elements of characters? What are these? We have number 1, protagonist, 2, antagonist, 3, flat, 4, dynamic, 5, round, 6, static. For this video, we will be learning how to evaluate narratives based on how the author developed the elements of plot. First, we have to know what is plot. Plot meant to organize information and events in a chronological manner. It is the way an author creates and organizes a chain of events in a narrative. In short, plot is the foundation of a story. Some described it as the what of a text. In a story, something has to happen, otherwise it's not a story. The plot of a story includes the events of the story and conveys the key themes, messages, and meaning of the narrative. It's what gives a story its energy and emotion. A good plot engages readers so they want to know what will happen next. How do we evaluate narratives based on how the author developed the plot? Let's start by knowing the elements of plot. First, we have exposition or introduction. Number 2, rising action. Number 3, climax. Number 4, falling action. Number 5, denouement or conclusion. Now let's examine each one of them. Let's start with number 1, exposition or introduction. In the exposition stage on the plot of a story, the setting and character, especially the main character known as the protagonist, are introduced, as well as the main problem, conflict, or goal of the story. Number 2, the rising action. The rising action stage involves an inciting incident. The inciting incident pushes the plot into motion. Events begin to build. The protagonist takes action and the storyline becomes more complex. During this phase, there is often a sense of tension. This happens when a series of events build up to the conflict. The main characters are established in this part, and at the same time, events begin to get complicated. It is during this part of a story that excitement, tension, or crisis are encountered. Number 3, climax. The climax is the turning point in the plot of a story. It involves a climax, hence the name, the central struggle. The protagonist faces the main challenge, which will eventually lead to the outcome or goal of the story. Typically, this is the most emotional part of the storyline, and it often involves the most action. Number 4, falling action. This is the explanation part of the story. It happens when events and complications begin to resolve. The results of the actions of the main characters are presented in this part of the story. Number 5, denouement or conclusion. In the denouement stage, the goal is resolved and the conflict ends. This is the end of the story, which may occur with either a happy or a tragic ending. This is how the plot looks like. From the left, it starts with exposition, then the rising action, then the climax, then moved on to the falling action, then lastly, the denouement or conclusion. Let's read how the events in the selection, A Dream Come True, are sequenced in a table. Each part illustrates the elements of the plot. This is the beginning action of the story. Happy Bello would stare for so long at the units that the owner would ask him if he wanted to buy one. The rising action, he saved money from his job at the grocery store. Climax, to his surprise, he saw two men pointing a gun to the store owner. Falling action, he inched his way through the narrow street and went to a telephone booth and called the police officers. Conclusion or denouement. To thank him, the owner gave him a new computer. Happy was indeed happy. Now that you saw how the story is presented alongside the elements of the plot, I'm sure you can now identify them in a story. Let's try in this story, but before that, look at the pictures. Can you tell what story are we going to read? But before we start, you have to answer this question at the end of the story. How did the prince escape the enemy soldiers? The Fly and the Spider by Richard Edwards. Why has God created the flies and the spiders? A young prince often said to himself, "Such insects are of no use to man, and had I the power, I would cause them to disappear from earth." One day, during a war, this prince was obliged or forced to flee or to run away before the enemy. At night, being very much fatigued or tired, he lay down under a tree in the middle of a forest and soon fell asleep. He was discovered by one of the enemy soldiers, who glided softly up to him, sword in hand, intending to kill. At this moment, a fly suddenly alighted on the cheek of the prince and stung him so sharply that he awoke. He started up, drew his sword, and fought with the soldiers, and at last escaped. Then the prince went and hid himself in a cave in the same forest. During the night, a spider spun her thread across the entrance. Two soldiers who were in search of the fugitive prince came so near the cave that he could hear their conversation. "Look," said one. "No doubt he is hidden here." "No," replied the other. "He could not have entered without tearing down the spider web." As soon as they had gone, the prince cried out with emotion, raising hands to heaven, "Oh my God, what a gratitude do I owe thee! Thou didst save my life yesterday by means of a fly, and today thou hast preserved me by means of a spider. Truly, there are use and purpose in all the works of thy creation. Let's see if you understood our story by answering these questions. Number 1. What happened one day during the war? The prince was obliged to flee before the enemy. While he was sleeping under a tree, what happened to him? One enemy soldier discovered him and tried to kill him, but was helped by a fly. Number 3. Where did the prince hide? In a cave. Number 4. Was he discovered by the enemy soldiers? Why? No, because they thought that there was no one inside the cave because of the presence of the spider web at the entrance of the cave. How did the prince escape the enemy soldier? The prince escaped by hiding in a cave and through the help of a fly and the spider web. What's the greatest lesson that the prince learned in this story? That all things on earth has use and purpose. Now that you understood the story, let us now identify the elements of the story by studying this picture. Can you now identify the elements of a plot in this story? Very good! I hope this video helped you understood our lesson. This ends your lesson for this video. Till next time!